Welcome to the SEI Podcast Series, a production of the Carnegie Mellon University Software Engineering Institute. The SEI is a federally funded research and development center sponsored by the U.S. Department of Defense. A transcript of today's podcast is posted on the SEI website at sei.cmu.edu/podcasts.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Miller, Principal Researcher here at the SEI. This is part of our ongoing podcast series, and this particular edition is coming to you from our homes because we are still in quarantine. So today I have the honor of interviewing Hasan Yasar, my colleague, my boss's boss, the Technical Director of the Continuous Deployment of Capabilities Directorate. And we're here today to talk about the move from something called DevOps, which many of you have heard about, to something called DevSecOps, which many of you have also heard about, but not everybody has. So it's time for you to hear about it. So I want to introduce Hasan and say welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Susie. We are part of team, as a DevOps
Yes,
team.
we are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So before we get into our main topic, we usually like to get a little bit, even though you've been on the podcast before, if you'd give our viewers just a little background of what it is you do here at the SEI and what is it that sort of makes you excited about the work we do here?
Well, so I have been working at SEI since 2010. I came from industry with lots of experience in the software engineering, software deployment delivery. And at SEI, when I start and really bring that experience of practitioner perspective to the community of DoD, now I have been leading a group, such a great group, including you, and talking about Agile and DevOps and DevSecOps and helping the DoD mainly, but helping the other industry as well. It's not just the DoD, but helping the community to improve their software delivery with faster and better quality. Not a faster and fail, faster and better quality. Now we are calling about DevOps. Maybe in the future we're going to call something else, but our intent is always to deliver software faster, better, and high quality. I really like the work because the work is never going to stop. We have been demanding more on the software world. We have been seeing a software in everywhere. Now it is a time to really look at what we can do, improve the level of the software, the high quality in the various applications. It's not just a web application, it is in everywhere, as I said, the mobile platform, IoT devices, and everywhere. Even if we are talking about AI component right now, but still is a software at the end. So I see it really is encouraging me and also to motivate me. The work is going to stay forever, seems to me. And I'm really happy to see challenging environments and various platform, various components with the team cultures and technical stacks. So I'm really excited to continue the work.
I will say, we've talked about this before, that every time we solve a problem, there's a new one that comes up that's related somehow to software. So yes, we're still busy. I've been in this at the SEI for decades, and so it's amazing how even though we've solved a lot of problems, there's still a lot to work on. And so DevSecOps is actually, I think, a nice example of this.
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know what DevOps and DevSecOps are, would you just summarize briefly sort of what is DevOps, what is DevSecOps, and why do we even care that there's a difference?
Great question. So I'm going to start a bit about how the DevOps started. So you came from Agile community, you know how the Agile started. I don't want to go that route. You can cover up that pieces. DevOps started in 2009 with the Agile movement, actually. It's not against it. It's a side effect of the Agile movement. So why that happened actually 2009, a group of people from operational team, they were really not upset, but they would like to do something different in their operation and environment to support the needs from Agile team, which is dev team, are making more incremental iterative changes for their application they are building. Their focus is more about the customer work. Their focus is more about getting things done, not spending a lot of work in the paper or anything else, just spending more on the content of the work and be delivered. So operational team, they said, why don't we change our mindset, be an agile in operational world so we can receive the needs from the agile team? That started in 2009 as a movement with Patrick DeBois and Clay Schaffer. As they get together, they said, let's change our mindset, make it as the DevOps way, like not DevOps, actually developer weighted agile and operation environment, they came up the term as a DevOps term in the Twitter handle, and they started DevOps days in back in October 2009. So that term actually stayed with the community as a DevOps. It was a DevOps days originally. That's how it started. So initial intent was getting a developer and operational team working together, but people realized that the community realized that it's not enough. Having a more business oriented, more supporting user needs requiring other stakeholder involvement. So that work got expanded more, including other stakeholders, not the dev and ops. Other stakeholders are acquisition people, architects, and the security team, etc. So when we build a stakeholder, it was still oriented for business needs and mission. And then it's more focusing delivering the capabilities. When we go really fast and fast and fast build, and security people see the another side effect of that DevOps movement. Such side effects are not able to test enough for the security needs, not able to test enough for vulnerable analysis, not able to connect the community with the security world. So security seems like not an intentionally, unintentionally forget include into the DevOps process. By definition of architecture, we would like to get the security as part of architecture, but it didn't work out with the DevOps community. Couple of reasons I can say, because when we start to use more continuous integration concept or continuous delivery concept, or mainly using any type of containerization concept, which is very hype right now, or using an existing code multiple times in an existing environment like a platform or backend, the developers start to use a lot of ready code. So ready code has to be analyzed from the security teams. Like developer would like to go, or architect they would like to use existing frameworks or using existing libraries and technologies. That type of mindset, again, not an intentional, kind of unintentionally open up the vulnerabilities or mindset into the DevOps pipeline, such as we are not able to address the dependencies, such as we're not able to address the enough security testings because we're going to go fast and fast because focus on more customer needs, and customer never says I need the security. Customers, I need that feature. That's expected, but as an organization, that's our responsibility to
They don't
security
say they
as
need security, but if you don't give
right.
them security, then they're not going to
Exactly. Nobody will be happy to see their data anywhere else. We see a lot of breaches happening almost every day. Nobody's happy to see their information is being sold in a black market. I'm not happy. You're not happy either. Like nobody's going to be happy. So we're not saying as a customer we need to protect our data, but
Right.
that movement was not properly addressed that mission specific security or specific compliance perspective. So while we are doing a lot of great work and people likes to see the great impact, and we start emphasize more security into the context of the DevSecOps. So DevSecOps start and adding a security into the every phase of life cycle. It is not in one elements, but adding a security into the every phase of life cycle. That's how DevSecOps term started. Actually, I have another story on this one, and I have been participating the many DevOps conferences, you know that, and then I have been also the organizing and running the a couple events with the community together. So, as part of the big convention for the security convention, which is RSA, and RSA conference has been happening almost 20 years. So we had a day for the DevOps days we run as part of RSA conference, but we were calling differently. We are saying like a secure DevOps, rugged DevOps. We called many definitions. About 3 years ago, as a community, we said, I know there's a lot of people are calling different things, rugged DevOps and secure DevOps, DevOps Sec DevOps, something. So as a community, we asked the audience, we said, what are you going to call? What is the purpose? Like, I know everybody's calling different things. About 750 people joined our kind of polling, and everybody liked the DevSecOps. Since that day, we're using a DevSecOps term as defining that concept of adding a security into the DevOps process. So it's not a in between Dev and Ops, but it is basically covering up all life cycle. We can open up more. That's what the DevSecOps start actually.
I like that as a term because it's really saying security is embedded inside dev and ops. It's not outside of it. And,
Right.
and that I suspect that's one of the reasons that it was popular. So, what are some of the challenges when you start making this shift, both in terms of organizationally, from your product viewpoint? What are some of the challenges of adopting a DevSecOps mindset, especially if you've already been doing DevOps? What are some of the things you're going to have to think about changing?
So honestly, Susie, based on the survey, we have been running almost 5 years. If organization has a DevOps as a maturity level, when I say the maturity, like not really implementing one component of DevOps. So let's open up DevOps a little bit so I can cover up the
Okay.
implementation detail. So when we say DevOps, we are looking for the full lifecycle perspective. If organization has just a integration server like a Jenkins with the repository management, with a tooling perspective, it is not DevOps.
Right.
It is the one element of covering up continuous integration, maybe just not a continuous integration, just integration of the code. When we're adding a continuous term into that definition, we would like to see a continuity in the life cycle. How I set my requirements, what is my case I'm working on it, how many sprints I'm running, which sprints I am in. Based on that continuity, we would like to see the continuous integration process for any code changes. Then we
Sure.
would like to deliver the code we've built it that will go to the staging or the any test harnesses. When we automatically deploy in the production, that will call continuous delivery. So all this fashion is all connected, either a tooling perspective or the process perspective. Process are running agile process. Process, how are we going to do iterative incremental development? And technology pieces are how we can architect our component that will support iterative incremental development. So all this continuity is really helping eventually add a secret into it. So based on the survey, what we find out, if organization has good maturity in the DevOps perspective and practices with the process and technology, they were able to add a security into their DevOps process more than 300%. It's interesting. Not a
Wow.
couple times. 338% they were able to get better or faster adding a security. Why is that? So starting from ground up, adding a security in that component, it's not going to work out. If we have a good DevOps environment, it's very easy to add a security component into it. Why is that possible? Multiple reasons we can open up. So one is we have a team structure already is available. So we can add a security team into our daily scrum if we need to. We can add a PI planning, we can add a sprint planning, postmortem, etc. with the process section of it. We have a platform that the security people can share the information with the team members, easily can share that. So now we are covering up the technology pieces. Now we have automation is in place, which is doing the integration or the testing or automation perspective. That's what the security people they will like to see as an artifacts. So if organization has a DevOps, they were able to easily add a security into it, and now we are calling it DevSecOps right now. We saw that as based on the statistics.
One of the things that in working with my customers, I know that the security people have appreciated is that because we've got this idea of a continuous pipeline, we're testing the code many, many times as we make changes. And that builds a body of evidence for the security community that vulnerabilities have not actually entered in. So even though we're changing the code, the fact that we're doing all this testing all the time gives them confidence
Right.
that many aspects of security testing, not all of them, but many aspects of security testing, they can kind of check off and say, yes, I have confidence, I have evidence
Right.
that, and I have data to support that this aspect of security has been dealt with in the way that they built this code.
Right.
And that opens up the security people I've talked to said that opens up them doing the more creative, sort of interesting threats that they don't always have time to think about because they're really just dealing with a lot of the mechanics. And so that's one of the benefits that I've seen with my customers.
Right.
What are some of the other things that you've seen in terms of the benefit to the security community?
There are many benefits. Before going to the benefits, because I forgot to add previous question, there are some roadblockers still, which is the trust problem. So think about the two communities. Now, typically and play that role for a while for as a developers, and I kind of play that role as a security. I was thinking, I think we should do some play with the how the interaction between
Ah,
developers and
so role
security.
play.
Right. I think we should do role play sometimes. So playing that role for myself, and I realized that also I'm teaching a software security class at the CMU. I know how the security thinking are. There is a trust problem between two entities. Why? Because first of all, security people are assuming that developer knows a concept of security. They
Sure.
know what the vulnerabilities are. They know the best coding practices are. They're expecting they should know all the network stack and IPs and the buffer, etc. But in reality, developer is not trained with the security. They're not trained. They don't know. I mean, like I have a
Unless they
students
take a class like yours.
exactly. So like in my if they have time, probably yes. But in my class, and I have about 30, 35 students, Susie, I ask that question all the time. Like most of them are CS departments, graduated, and good universities in all around the world, it's including CMU. They don't know the concept of the security. I know they know very high level,
Sure.
but they don't know what needs to be done with respect to the technology, with respect to the tools. And also they don't know what is the specific networking and stuff because they train writing a code or building a systems, good architectures or good database design or good algorithm or anything else.
Right.
But the security is a living thing, Susie. When I say living things, it is not as static as learning some language. It's a new things because you have to really follow up to speed, come up with new
Right.
technology, new concept, new idea. So hacker community or the adversaries communities are very up to date. So really difficult to developer following that what is really happening is a trend, understanding all the vulnerabilities, all the possibility of thinking,
Sure.
implementing the code. So that's kind of like a without knowing each other's now becoming developer are blaming the security folks as the gatekeeper and blocker. Security people are blaming the dev team are creating a crappy code. So it's basically crappy code is the bad code. It's creating a evil thinking between the both parties. But both intents are delivering a good softwares.
Sure.
So developer intent is really fixing a lot of functionalities, but the security people intent is making resilient systems. So they don't really converge that.
Yeah.
And how are we going to build up that trust, as you said in your statement, Susie? We can add build up the component as the people can trust each other. So how are they
Sure.
going to trust each other? That's the what DevOps comes in the picture because as a security people, if I know developer are working such component, which is libraries and code, then I can see a full transparency, like a full application lifecycle, including the artifacts, including the backend stuff. It makes me comfortable what
Right.
developer are working on it. So I'm not going to look at it as a suspicious way developer anymore because I can see how they are working, what they are working, what type of tool they were using it. Maybe I can give them a open like kind of environment they can use the existing library that I already verified as a security people.
Right.
So basically transparency is building up a trust between the two entities. And second things also with automation, concept automation, testings, and analysis stuff, now the security people can see that how we are able to speed up the process by creating artifacts as a security
Mhm.
teams. Right? And also another thing is important, developer will use the existing operating systems or the boxes that security team are advising will them give them enough confidence that hey, I'm a security person, I already gave them what operating system they are going to use, and developer you use that they're not going to use by themselves and pulling somewhere on the internet, maybe going a Docker hub, pulling something from Docker hub, which is creating kind of trusted sources, and security
Right.
people will use that. So biggest benefit for me for both entities, creating a trust, which is important. Trust is based on the transparency and visibilities. So they can see what is going on. They have a full visibility of the pipeline. And which is creating a lot of good input for the security. Another important factor now going back to the other direction. So whenever the security people are analyzing the code, they were able to send the feedback to the dev team as a digestible ways. Like if there is no DevOps, which I work in years, when I send my code to the security teams, they were analyzing the code. They were sending me a 50 pages of the pen testing result.
Yeah.
Do you think that people have enough time to look at the 50 pages of reports,
People's
Susie?
eyes roll in their heads when they see
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
So nobody has enough time. With the
Yeah.
mindset of DevOps now, we are using a lot of static analysis tools or dynamic analysis, whatever the tools we are using it. We are able to create a feedback on time and a specific context. Another important factor, as I said at the beginning, so is if we are expecting that everybody knows everything. It's a wrong assumption. It's not. Nobody knows everything. I mean, if everybody knows everything, I'm happy to hire it. We don't have that people. We should not be that either because we're not going to create a person knows everything. It's going to be a
Sure.
buzz problem eventually. But we would like to increase our team knowledge. So team knowledge should be as the institutional knowledge in the organization where we are building. So with the feedback mechanisms, with the right tools, sending feedback through the chat window, that can be a hip chat, can be any type of mechanisms they were using it. The feedback has a couple of components, which is almost all the static analysis has. Result of the analysis, what the problem it is, what the solution it is. So
Yeah.
technically, we
They
are
know it.
we are teaching the developer what the solution it is. So
Yeah.
revealing the knowledge. Now the security teams, instead of sending 50 pages of documents, now the system is sending the information as in a way that developer will know what the problem it is, how to solve the problem, which is another great benefits, which is continuous feedback, we are calling it.
Right.
Now we are expanding feedback, including security, not a business, not a user. Now the security teams are able to send feedback to timely the developers what needs to be done.
So these are all things that, and automation, the automation of the tool ecosystem. I mean, it's an ecosystem now. It's not just a pipeline, but the automation inherent in the tooling ecosystem is one of the things that has really made a lot of what you're talking about possible. When I was writing code in the 80s, that was not feasible. I remember the very first automated testing software that my company brought in for us to look at. Everybody would just laugh at it if they saw today, how cumbersome it was and 50 pages of things to look at. I mean, it was not a useful way for us to learn about solutions to different kinds of problems. Many organizations struggle with this, and what are the right tools, and do we help with criteria? Are there ways that we can help them to not say, oh, you should use Jenkins or you should use this, but help them understand what are the choices that they need to make when they move in this direction? And are there criteria? I mean, you can say things like, your tool set is going to have low vulnerabilities. Okay, that's great. But if I'm evaluating, an offering for doing containerization or something like that, how do I know? What kind of criteria do I use to say this is going to be more secure than that? Do we have artifacts, resources that we can help people with in that area?
Exactly. So let's open up that question a little bit further. So I think, as we said at the beginning, when we get a DevSecOps, we would like to have a software delivery cycle should be in place, which is DevOps, we are calling it. But what are the principles of DevSecOps are? The principles are communication and collaborations, principle of automation, infrastructure as a code, and monitoring, which is sharing. So all this concept is the must-have things. So if I am picking a tools, if tool is not able to communicate with me in a proper way, which is I'm trying to address the communication principles of the DevOps or DevSecOps. Let's call DevSecOps now. So I don't want to confuse anyway. So how can we address the better communication and collaboration that tool I'm using? So as now we are saying like try to address some principles of DevSecOps. How can I do automation in the DevSecOps pipeline? Or how can I add a monitoring concept into the pipeline? So all these principles we have to achieve in our DevSecOps pipeline. If I'm going to pick the tools, we have to say, what is the reason why I'm going to pick these tools? In the integrated pipeline concept, what is the puzzle it's going to fit into my pipeline? When it's going to fit into my pipeline, Can I integrate that into my pipeline, which is integratability? Can I get a data from that tools for a monitoring perspective? Can I use the infrastructure pieces like standing up the tools if I need to? Can I deploy independently? Can I maintain that tool independent, which is interoperability? So
And can I swap it out if somebody
exactly,
does find a
right. How
vulnerability?
much is flexible it is? So tool should give you that perspective. So I pick the reason that I'm going to use. Let's say I'm going to pick a tool that do tool with a static analysis for me. Great. So now I'm going to ask a question myself. Can I ask the static analysis tools into my pipeline? Is it going to talk with my build server, maybe a Jenkins, maybe a TeamCity, maybe a Bamboo? It doesn't matter what it is. Can I integrate into my pipeline? Can I integrate into my IDE environment? I saw some tools are capable to really give the feedback early in life cycle. The earliest feedback we can give in the life cycle when the developer writing a code. When the developer writing a code, they were using an IDE, integrated development environment. So IDE is a good place to integrate the tools. As an example, if I'm able to, as a kind of tool owner, if I'm able to give a feedback to developer when they're writing an object or a code, give the syntax error, give the some type of code practicing when they write the code, this is the perfect way of shifting left the security concept all the way to the left side, which is more early in the life cycle. So now I'm looking for tool perspective. So can I integrate here? Can I integrate there? Great, I integrated. Am I able to pull data from that tool so I can monitor quickly in my life cycle? Now we are addressing a monitoring perspective. Now, can I share the outcome of that tools into the various collaboration portals like issue tracking systems? Can I tool create an issue for me instead of creating manually? See, now I'm connecting to the issue tracking system. See that now we pick the tools, we put in a place, we are asking the principles of DevOps. How can I increase the communications? How can I do automation? How can I do monitoring perspective? If you're able to address all these common principles, that's the biggest criteria. But what we start the first is we start, why are we going to use this tool? What is the purpose? It is very important. We don't want to go to tools that we like it. We don't want to go to tools it's everybody's talking about the communities.
Everybody's using Cucumber.
Right. But what is the reason?
How they come up with these names, I have no idea.
Right. So exactly. So use the tools for our needs. And I give another analogy, maybe I give many times before. I always describe when I teach the class, say, when you go to the Home Depot, you're looking for a tools, which we do all the time for some work in our house and some little projects. We always look to tools that meets our project needs. We don't like the tools that we like it. We are not paying a lot of money. We have a project in our head. We already put the list of it. We just buying the tools what we need to do for a specific project. May not be exactly the same thing, but in software, it's the same world. We have a project. We have to look at why I need to do that. What is the purpose?
You know what is the outcome? What you bring up there is actually really relevant because there are people, I have some in my family, that go to Home Depot with a project in their head and they get completely distracted by all the tools that they didn't know were available to do something like that. And they, instead of coming home, with a screwdriver, they come home with this automatic thing that, dials around, you dial in what you want and the right screwdriver thing pops out. And it's like, I just need a flathead screwdriver. What are we doing here? And we see that in our tooling environments in DevOps and DevSecOps, where, all of a sudden people have said, oh, we have to do that, and, this whole list of things, and nobody's asking the question that is important.
Right.
Why? And so, I definitely resonate with that. And I love the example because I resonate with that too.
That's end of the day, we are creating a lot of technical debt. Either keeping in the garage, never use it at all, not effective. In the software world, in a worst case scenario, we can sell the tool in a yard sale probably, but in the software world, it is done. We cannot sell anything. It's done. We are part of it. And then the biggest challenge actually in the DevSecOps, it's the sustaining of environment, Susie. We build up the tools, we build up the pipeline. Who's going to maintain the pipeline? Who's going to update that? If we
Well,
distracted
and we
ourselves
haven't
a
really
lot,
talked much about the fact that it's not just the technology environment that changes, but our threat environment changes. The hackers that are doing, ransomware didn't exist 10 years ago. Nobody thought about, the way that you hold somebody hostage, you hold their data hostage to get money out of them. But now that's a thing that we all have to deal with. And I don't know what the next thing is, and I'm not sure I want to, but there's always going to be something new in the threat horizon and the threat environment that we also have to pay attention to. So this is one of the reasons this is a never-ending problem set, because there's always going to be people thinking of, how do I get around what the blockade that you've put in front of your code? How do I get around that so that I can do something that you don't want me to do?
right? It's a good point, Susie. Like, what is next? When we say what is next, we would like to be resilient enough.
Yeah.
We should be ready for any bridges down the road. So, how can we be ready for any type of disaster situation, like a breach? Maybe ransomware is one of the examples. Maybe other bridges. In a software world, to be ready any type of bridge, we have to know what we have our assets, which with our code. If something happens, we should be able to respond quickly for any bridges. Response may be fixing a code. Response may be a patch of the software. If you look at any bridges, I actually analyze the bridges in my study as well. The most of the bridges, data bridges, is based on the common vulnerability, which is maximum 24, Susie, maximum 24. Out of 24, and mainly are the input sanitizations, very basic in the CW examples.
Yeah.
So that's a common thinking. But to fix the very basic vulnerabilities, just the input sanitization, we have to look at the code, we have to recompile, push the new version of it. So we have to really know that. In the context of software world, Susie, you have been in the world almost 30 years. When we switch the context to different the tools or different program or different projects, do you remember anything 6 months ago? Say that.
I'll tell you, especially in COVID world, I don't even know what day it is sometimes.
See that?
So yeah, 6 months ago. I just know that 6 months ago was pre-COVID.
Right. For the coder, for the developers.
But not useful, as you say, not useful if I'm trying to fix something I did 6 months ago.
So now we need to have the context. To get the context in the software world, we have to know, we cannot go back to 6 months, we don't need the time travel, but we have to look at what artifacts are, what things test we have done it, what the dependencies are, where the version it is, so we can quickly look at our code and fix that specific very basic vulnerabilities. That is requiring.
That goes back to what you were saying earlier about we have to have that transparency.
Right.
If I'm a security person who understands input sanitization for this particular type of data set, I probably understand that better than the actual coders. So if I can look at what is out there, if I can look at the code and I can see what's there, I can help them to say, oh, this is the spot that probably caused this problem. Let's fix that. Where it may still take the coder who originally did it a longer time because they don't have the same mental model of what it is they're looking for. So this teaming of the security and the coding community and facilitating that through these many, many new ways of communicating, I think is one of the things that's making a difference in the environments that I see.
Exactly. And we didn't say another word. It's another, not a buzzword, it's a real word, is traceabilities. DevOps is giving traceabilities. So exactly we know where we develop the code, which components are, what type of library has been used. We can automatically fix it or pull up and then push the new version. So we are racing. And then another things I have to say, Susie, unfortunately, I don't want to say the dark, the communities, adversary communities are sharing more, but as a team for the software developer engineers or the good people, we can say, we're not sharing enough information between us. We don't have that type of sharing mechanisms, but the adversaries are sharing a lot. They are faster, they are sharing. So we have to be proactive in the concept of the security. Proactive means we should be ready. We should be resilient. We should be sharing the information amongst each other. So we should be ready if something happens.
Which brings up another trust issue, which I think is one of the things that prevents the people that are trying to protect their environments is who do I trust?
Mm-hmm.
Who is it safe to share with? And now you get into a whole bunch of different layers of trust, and a whole nother topic is the zero trust architecture kinds of stuff. But I think there are challenges, and I think the kinds of things that we do with the DevSecOps days and things like that, conference events, we know that there are bad actors that go to those, just like there are good actors that go to those kinds of things. And I think the resilience idea that you're talking about is like, we have to just accept that and understand that whatever we say to anybody can get perverted. But at the same time, we can't be so paranoid that we don't say anything to anybody, because then we're going to miss the new ways to protect ourselves in different areas. And so, I don't want to oversimplify this for people. This is a complex area to work in, but we're paralyzed if we don't do anything, and we aren't able to take advantage of the wonderful technology. I mean, just look at what we're doing right now. I mean, 5 years ago, if COVID had happened, I can't even imagine how we would be having this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And if there wasn't a certain amount of trust that we had with whoever provides the video and the audio and, the data going across the links, we would never be able to do this. And so you have to make a decision that you're going to act in a way that is resilient, but is not a way, you can't be naive, but you can't just stay paralyzed either. Sorry, I got on a soapbox there.
You're great. You're great.
Why don't we wrap this up by helping the people that are going, okay, so what do I do next? If I really haven't been thinking about DevSecOps, what should I be doing, and what kinds of resources should I look to the SEI for to help me in making this transition, because I need to make this transition?
Great. So we have so many resources either through the SEI or through the communities. So we have a space for DevOps, we have a space for Agile. I really encourage our listeners and take a look at SEI resources. We have been publishing the webcasts and webinars, blog posts, and technical write-up, technical paper, research paper we have been publishing. And also, as you're part of it, Susie, we have been hosting DevSecOps days. Now another one is going to come up October 1st as a virtual event. So please participate that type of events as the attendees. You will get a lot of lesson learned from others. But we have to be really careful, because we don't want to be exactly copying and pasting the same infrastructure. We should remember that why questions. What is my project? Why I'm going to achieve that? What is the purpose of it? We should remember that. Based on what we know, what we have internally, let's build up DevOps. If you don't have a DevOps, start to build up DevOps environment. Then we build up the DevOps, including the security folks at the beginning into your pipeline. Either a process with the team cultures or the tooling perspective. That has to go together parallel. Don't just build up the pipeline, say, I'm going to build up the pipeline first and then go look at the process later on. It's a wrong assumption. Or just covering up the process without get to it wrong. So we have to go as a parallel. We have to go like a raise up, and we can get better on the three classical term, process and technologies, and then talking about the people section. So we have to go together. We have to train the people, we have the right processes in place, we have the right technology. It's a balance. So we can increase the bar. For me, from DevSecOps, there is no limit on DevSecOps. We can get better and better and better. Because it's a journey. We're just looking for what things is not working. We can go fix it. Sometimes we may see some training problems. We may see some tool problems. We may see some process issues. We may see some compliance perspective. So we may see many type of the barriers, and we have to enable also the barriers based on what we see, and then that's what enablers are.
All right, so I want to thank you. I always enjoy having a conversation with you about these topics. I think the next one might be on sort of what are the future expansions of that middle part, because we're hearing about people saying not just DevSecOps, but DevStarOps, as in
DevResOps.
So that can be our next conversation. For our viewers, we will have in our transcript links to all of the kinds of things we were talking about, assets of different types the SEI has provided, community portals and things like that. So you can get that all when you look at the transcript. We will also have this podcast available in all the places that you get all your other podcasts, whether it's SoundCloud or other places. So please do look for this podcast and share it with your friends. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for joining us. This episode is available where you download podcasts, including SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. It is also available on the SEI website at sei.cmu.edu/podcasts and the SEI's YouTube channel. This copyrighted work is made available through the Software Engineering Institute, a federally funded research and development center sponsored by the U.S. Department of Defense. For more information about the SEI and this work, please visit www.sei.cmu.edu. As always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us at info@sei.cmu.edu. Thank you.